There, monkeys. Grab that cup of coffee, kick back, and relax. We'll get started with a SITREP in just a minute. All right. Hey, welcome, Monkey Nation. This can be your SITREP. It is 8/9/2023. And without further ado, we'll jump over here to the board. We got a lot to cover today. We're going to talk a little bit more in depth about some of the things that we are seeing out there with respect to this, it's floating barge, prison barge, right? There's actually more than just one. And also, we're going to get into all the details going on over in Africa. There's a lot of moving pieces happening, and we've dug into some interesting little data points for you that I think will maybe pique your interest some when you see what is really going on behind the scenes, what could be behind it all, really, I guess, to say the least. And then, of course, we're going to talk aircraft stuff. We're going to look at the skies right now. In fact, we are over here in Sky Glass as always. And you're going to see total count 225. Now, keep in mind, I've already taken out 52 Tex 2s and 24 of our T-38 lawn darts. Now, I'm going to peel that onion back a little bit as we take a closer look. We're going to see what we've got up in terms of air refuelers. That's going to be the 76200 Pegasus. And then let's go down a little further here to our KC-135s. We got 21 of those. So we're sitting around 30, just under 30 air refuelers. So I'm showing 28 on screen here over CONUS. And so let's take a gander at where they're all located. Notice these down here in California, Southern California to be exact. There's 3 of them, actually. So that tells you there's a lot of fighter activity going on there. This one down to the border area. Now, notice that's a little more closer to Laughlin Del Rio. Started out over here a little further towards Biggs Army Airfield. Then this one that's out over, looks to be New Mexico, probably because Flashbang is down in Albuquerque today, and then he heads to Salt Lake City, I believe. We'll take a look at what he's up to today as well. And then, of course, out off the east coast of Georgia and off of Virginia Beach, the usual spots. This one all way up north in terms of location. That's actually looks to be over Canada almost. And, yeah. And then this one over Madison, Wisconsin. Let's look and see if we got any activity over Europe. It's been pretty quiet in terms of aircraft. Yeah, we just have this one, which is interesting. We've got some other stuff going on over Italy right now. So I don't know. We'll look closer at the NOTAMs, see if there's anything there. But notice one thing that we do not see, which I guarantee they are up, and that is the Middle East and Europe. All right. That tells you that we are at the next level. When we stop seeing all of the stuff that we normally see, they didn't go away. That's an indicator that they are trying not to be seen for a reason, okay? So let's do this. Let's jump back over here to CONUS, and then we're going to populate the screen, take away some of these traces. And then again, let me see. We do have one drone up. That's not here. Okay, we'll come back to that. We did have a Q4. Here it is, the Q4 drone. This one right here looks to be out over the same area. Remember, we've got Out off the coast right here, an air refueler up, which was a pretty good indicator of fighter activity. And then, of course, you've got Score 46, which is a Q4 drone at 23,000 feet. And I don't have any traces for him as of yet. Let me hit the trace line and see if we can see where he came out of. No, it looks to be straight up, straight down. So there he is, right there. Again, over DC area. Okay. All right. Let's back this back up. And then let's get into our watch list real fast. Let's go. It's going to be Homeland Security off of Baja, down south of the border. A lot of survey flights and an Intel bird. It's a Intel 03, which is that's going to be the normal spots, more survey flights. And then it looks like a R135 Cobra call sign, more survey flights. We have a B-52 and an E-6 in that same region. Survey flight is south of that over the Dallas area. And then NOAA, and which looks to also be Homeland Security down south of Florida. And then more survey flights. So we got 28 survey flights over the United States right now. Now, the number has gone down by about 50 every 3 days. And then there's that Q4 we just talked about. Notice the NASA 5. And we're going to look closer at weather modification as well during this time. And then notice you got the Graybeards, which is going to be Phoenix Air, and then that G5 Forge 78 that's headed westbound. And there's that NASA 5. N95, I believe, NA is a tail number on that one. Again, weather-related science, as they call it. Yeah. All right. More survey flights. That's going to be German Intel balloons. Those last three I just touched. Looks like we got an E3 mixed over those surveys. And then that is Antonov. That's a Russians going in and out of Kaliningrad. And then notice you got another one headed down towards Georgia. Okay, now let's talk here. Intel, these are drones, by the way, the Turkish drones. We see them pretty frequently now. Every time we're up, they are very active and busy. Okay, here's your Intel flight. And notice, again, Southern California, very, very active going on down there, that side of the U.S. A little bit of stuff south of Tucson, Biggs Army Airfield, and then we get over here towards the East Coast, and there's a couple things there, one over D.C. and then some over Georgia. And then, of course, let's jump over to Europe. Notice Italy. Remember, we were just looking at air refuelers, that exact same spot and location. And then down towards Romania, and then also around Kaliningrad up into Latvia. It looks to be Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, covering that area. All right. And then let's go into the survey side of the house. And just notice, again, down south, Los Angeles area, hot and heavy. Dallas-Fort Worth, pretty busy. It's been consistent. Again, I think they're polishing up what they've already been looking at. All right. I think they're just coming back and getting a better look at data they had because maybe it didn't get it just right. So they're continuing to go back over areas. So we'll continue to watch that, but I think it is a definite data point for us. 156 last 3 days. Again, up near Anchorage, Alaska, very active and busy also. All right. And we go down to Australia, and you can see they're, again, fairly active there to the northeastern side of Poznan. That's a U.S. military base. Belgium and Netherlands, very busy. I said Australia. I meant Europe. I clicked the wrong button, but we needed to go there anyway. And now we'll go down under. And, yeah, my geography today, folks, just bear with me. I'm bouncing all over the board. And it is, again, south of Darwin in Australia. Perth is still very active and busy. Melbourne, Sydney, the big cities, lighter than it has been, but definitely an indicator they are still looking at a lot of stuff, okay? All right, let's get back over here to our mini board. We'll talk Ruskies here in a minute as well as drones. But let's do this. We're going to jump from this. We'll get to our main board. Let me button this up. This is going to be Flashbang. Again, we're going to look at his schedule here in just a second. And let's get into the news. So if you're up in the Northeast, you're getting hammered. And we talked about this in the last SITREP as it related to the weather mod flights. We're going to look at it again today because I will tell you this stuff is intentional. And 400,000 customers hit by major power outages across the eastern United States. Yeah, let's look at the weather. If you kind of back it up and you can see this just sloppy mess headed that direction. And today we don't really have too much going on. This looks to be where Flashbang is headed after he gets back. I think, let me just double check, that's VIP status. Yeah, that's going to be Flashbang. So it looks like he's headed home or back to the beach, one or the other. And let's see, today, so he's here down in Albuquerque, then he's headed northbound. Yeah, these blue boxes and all of these blue boxes, yellow, red, those are going to be power outages, okay? So that brings me to this next point. If you haven't done so and you are thinking about getting some type of an auxiliary power unit that you can fire up with some solar backup so that you can charge them from a solar perspective, jump over to BeReady123.com. That's BeReady123.com. You can actually hit that little barcode right there with your camera, and it'll take you straight to this website, so you don't have to type anything in. But that right there is, I'm telling you, the way to go. This thing, you can power all your essentials. Some of these have government rebates, as you can see down here, like a tax credit info. And then some of them you get, some of them are very strong. You can actually power appliances with them and stuff. So again, I've got several of these in my house that I use for just backing up my computer. So if the power blinks on and off, nothing fails. It just keeps me online the whole time, okay? But a bunch of different stuff. And then also, they still have phones down. Currently, the MRSAT phone, it's sold out. But this one over here, which is the best on the market, this Iridium 9555, they have those in stock. It takes about a week to get, but the inventory is getting low. Like I said before, when we get into this kind of thing, these inventories just don't last. They are bought up and they're gone. So if you're thinking about it, jump on it. That is BeReady123.com. That's BeReady123.com. All right, let's get away from that. Let's get back over here to Flashbang and what's happening. So we see him. We see the big yellow TFRs that are over his area, the very large TFRs. It looks like he's headed out to talk about these chips, the CHIPS Act. You may remember that's the thing that he put into play when it came to these superconductor chips, and when we turned our back on Taiwan and basically said, hey, thanks for everything and good luck, right? But it looks like he's down in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And this is a laughable Inflation Reduction app. Yeah. We'll get into some of the Bidenomics here in just a minute. But yeah, that's where we are. It looks like he's headed up to Salt Lake City, Utah from there. And then let's jump over here. Breitbart. Wholesale inventories fall by more than expected. This is a big, big indicator. I will tell you the small business side of the house also is feeling it because of inflation. And keep in mind that the small businesses are very important here in our country. And if they start to feel the pinch, they start laying off or they decide not to carry inventories, etc. But this one, just a data point for you. Non-durable good inventories dropped 1.2%, with stocks of petroleum, paper, and farm products all declining. In the durable goods category, inventories slipped a milder 0.1%. Stocks of computer equipment, hardware, and metals fell. Auto and machinery inventories, however, rose. So that aspect is good, probably because we are preparing for war. And so the machinery side of the house, people are having to put on some additional capacity, probably to make munitions and all the other stuff. That's probably why we're seeing a little bit of an uptick from that standpoint. But it says compared with a year ago, however, merchants seem a bit more optimistic. Total inventories were up 1.3% in June compared with the same month last year. The ratio of inventories to sales climbed a bit, with wholesalers holding 1.4 months worth of merchandise compared to 1.40 months in May. So it has declined a little bit, but they weren't expecting that decline, I guess, is the big takeaway. So let's see. All right, let's move on. Pentagon greenlights the first batch of Abrams tanks for Ukraine. Now, this they're saying they're going to be delivering early in the fall, but this is your Bohica moment, basically saying that not only the tanks will be transferred, but a complete package of equipment needed to support and maintain them. So it is a turnkey solution for Ukraine. And yeah, let's talk a little more about this. Ukraine warns of significant weapons shortage. Think about this. The $118 billion worth of money and equipment that we, just the U.S. alone, has sent to them, coupled by the rest of NATO and all the stuff that they have been given, these cats want to say they don't have enough to go fight the war and they're getting their butts kicked. And this is a laughingstock. Listen, they don't have the capacity to fight this war, nor the knowledge or know-how to operate the equipment we're giving them, okay? That in lies the problem. And so they're saying here, this is from the Ukraine military campaign and counteroffensive, recent counteroffensive are being held back by a lack of weaponry, and the Allies need to provide additional supplies and effectively counter Russia. And this is coming from one of the top aides to little man Zelensky himself. From the point of view battlefield parity, there is indeed a significant shortage. Well, you know, they've lost about 25% of the stuff that we have given them. That's stuff that has just been destroyed. The other aspect is they're walking away from equipment because they can't navigate the minefield or whatever it may be. So they're just getting out and leaving it on the battlefield. So the other thing I was reading too is that multi-million dollar equipment is being destroyed by a couple $100 drone or drones. And so that is also kind of impacting it. So Russia's basically taking out crazy, crazy expensive stuff with a couple $100 drone. Yeah, the world we live in. All right. Now, let's get into or away from Ukraine. Let's talk weather modification for a minute, because I will tell you guys, notice where all of the NASA birds are flying currently and active. We get back over here to our map and notice what is coming their way, right? These guys are all kind of in here flying around. You got all of this weather coming that way. More than likely, in all honesty, I think they are cloud seeding. So let's go take a look at the NASA birds and what they're up to. You can check this out off the coast of California. It looks like they've been out doing a little bit of legwork there. And then you get in and out of, looks like that came out of Texas. But here, this is where that storm is all lining up outside of Missouri. And notice they are, let me just back that up a little bit. They are all hanging out right here. This is the same spot we saw them before. You may remember we talked about the flights into Canada and dumping this pink mist out of one of the airplanes that was caught on camera. Yeah, science, folks, science. So this is why you have all the mess up on the East Coast, why it is record crazy and it's, you know, making all the news cycles. While the rest of us in the country have zero rain, these folks are just populating the sky with doing their cloud seeding. We're also going to look at the weather mod aspect too, but just notice all the way up to Maine, some stuff going on towards the beach area where Biden likes to hang out. And then we got it down over the Caribbean, hurricane season. We're about to hit the peak here in about 10 days of hurricane season, all right? Okay, let's talk weather mods. Check this one out. Now, this is a company that is referred to as Weather Modification LLC and or SOAR. And just notice, again, where are they located? Yeah, that is the same location that Flashbang is about to be as soon as he gets away from Salt Lake City and comes back, right, for the weekend. Are they putting some cooler weather in for him? How are they doing all this, right? Clearly, again, these companies are SOAR is one of them, which stands for, it's a seeding operation, cloud seeding operation. And the other one is called Weather Modification LLC, okay? These are pretty good-sized companies. They have a lot of airplanes, but they are privately, held companies, not government-related, right? This is in addition to the stuff that NOAA is doing. Now, the key to a lot of that is the fact that they have to tell NOAA what they're up to, supposedly, okay? So, yeah. Anyway, this is basically airbornescience.nasa.gov, and you can track all their flights if they leave them up. Usually it's live activity. They typically, well, not always, but they will wipe certain flights, so you can have no trace or history of it, okay? Yeah, this is their little website, and you can learn a little bit more about what the planes do or what they will tell you they do, not necessarily everything entirely what they do. Okay, let's talk NOTAMs and TFRs, etc. Just want to point out, this is Niger, okay, Mali, right? This is an active exercise within Nigeria, the country to the southwestern corner of Niger, scheduled July through October 4th, and then this one June to September 1. Just notice here it says there's low altitude training of military helicopters will take place in those areas. Training exercises. Yeah. Right. Well, let's talk a little bit about Africa. If you haven't noticed, as we look across this band right here, right from all the way from left to right, including Ethiopia, cutting Africa in half, technically, all right? Just check this out. This, since 2020 to now, are all of the coups that have taken place where they've had some type of an overthrow of government within the countries. The interesting piece, okay, look at Guinea. If you know the number one export for Guinea, gold. The number one export for Mali, gold, okay? The number one export for Chad, oil, all right? And Sudan, the number one export, gold. Now, let's talk Niger for a minute. Guess what the number one export is? Uranium, all right? So, coincidence? Probably not. Now, I will tell you this. When it comes to Niger, and we're going to talk more about this here in just a second. Let me get back over to my mini. They don't like the United States. They hate us, in fact. So our U.S. State Department is trying to go over there and get them to basically let out the last president. All right. Now, here's what I find interesting. They basically declined the request. And if you know anything about this lady, Victoria Nuland, she's pretty shady to begin with, okay? But it says that they traveled over there to Niamey to express grave concern at the undemocratic attempts to seize power and urged a return to constitutional order. And that came from Ms. Nuland herself. And they said it was a risky visit. And given the country has just undergone a coup, that it was, not really safe for her to be in there, but she did it anyway. It should be noted that U.S. officials have not yet used the term coup to describe the situation. But this, yeah. Here's the crazy thing. They're saying that they don't know who was behind the coup, right? But they are worried that the Wagner guys are trying to take advantage of it. Now, this is what I think is very funny, because we know that our agencies are very much ingrained in overthrowing governments. My guess is we have attempted to overthrow these governments across the line there, especially with uranium being the number one export, hoping that we could actually destabilize the region and then come in and stabilize it and put in our own guy and be off to the races. But it looks like that all of these attempts have fallen kind of into the Russian and China hands. Russia is there just basically stepping in lock, stock, and barrel. And I don't think that was the plan, okay? And it says here that after Nuland's Monday visit to Niger, it didn't bear much fruit, that Blinken has accused the Wagner Group of seeking to take advantage of instability in the West African country and spread its Russian influence. And this is where your big takeaway is right here. Okay, it says, I think this is coming from Stinkin' Blinken. I think what happened and what continues to happen in Niger was not instigated by Russia or by Wagner, but they tried to take advantage of it. This is what he told the BBC. Yeah, well, that's probably because we more than likely were the ones behind it, or somebody with a lot of money that has a lot of time spent in Africa may have been, the ones behind it. So uranium is usually needed for an energy company, and we've talked a little bit about TerraPower and the fact that Mr. Gates is actually the founder of TerraPower, and we know that he likes to spend a lot of time in Africa as well. So connecting dots, it may not be there, I don't know, but definitely a food for thought when it comes to the shenanigans that happen abroad, right? Okay, now we did mention Ethiopia, and I want to say oil may have been the number one, or was it gold? It was one of the two in terms of their number one export as well. But they're saying that Ethiopia just got out of one war, and they're saying that another one is already starting to begin. So again, we go back to our Africa map. You can go left to right, and it's going to take you right into Ethiopia, just to the left of that Horn of Africa and south of Sudan. So that is not good. So as you can see, here's Ethiopia here. Let me get to the right map. There we go. Here's Ethiopia here. Again, you've got them running all the way across from Guinea to Mali to Niger, Chad, Sudan, now Ethiopia. I mean, you could literally cut it right across. And keep in mind, too, that this region, we start talking Somalia and Ethiopia and all of this around the Horn of Africa, you start dealing around with special forces guys like the Navy SEALs. And when you get up to the north side of Africa, up here like Morocco, Tunisia, etc., then you start talking about Delta Force guys, right? Now, the two of them probably work hand in hand throughout here, but yeah, you got some pretty bad pipe hitters in this general area. So nonetheless, this is where the shakeup is currently here. We just saw the coup here and now here. All right. What are the odds? All right. Let's get to our main story. Let's talk about this stuff going on with the ships. And let me see if I can grab the right one. This flotilla. No, I take that back. This is actually the main brunt of all of this. This is a prison barge. Okay. It has gone over like a lead balloon in England. There's a lot of pushback and resistance to this. It'll hold about 500 people, and there are more than just one of these. And that is probably the big key takeaway here, because the fact of the matter is there are, this is one of 6. Now, they don't talk about the other ones, but I will say this. You've got a company that goes by Bibby Marine Limited, right, or the Bibby Line Group, and they're based out of the UK. John Bibby, who was, I think, the founder of this company originally in 1807, long gone, obviously. But here's the thing. They currently have 6 floating accommodations, as they call these vessels, and they go by the names Bibby Stockholm, Bibby Challenge, Bibby Progress, Bibby Renaissance, Bibby Bergen, and Bibby Pioneer. Now, oddly enough, all of the locations of these vessels are not available at this time. Otherwise, or other words, we cannot find them anywhere. But according to The Guardian, thousands of asylum seekers could be housed in these vessels, and they would be moored near Newcastle and several other areas all the way down to the London docks. So, but this is, it hasn't been really well received. Now, we talk about the timing of this. It is interesting that I must say that we are seeing such an increase. Floating prison barges, they were pretty common in World War I. They kind of went to the wayside. World War II maybe had some, but they were not really frequently used. They kind of were frowned upon. We know they exist. We've seen them. Okay, there's one in New York that's actually docked in New York that is used as a prison. But there are a lot of others out there that we hear rumors about, but we can never really get our fingers on them because they are being pulled by barges to and from the location. They don't really have, the ability to motor along themselves. So they dock them in places, But this, again, is one of 6. This holds about 500 people. The reason that is important is because we are starting to see a trend that we have not seen in the world since World War II. And that is, it's not just floating accommodations, as they say, right? You go over here to Google Maps. I tracked flights in and out of all of these locations. The yellows were already kind of existing, and they use them. They're correctional centers, but they're used mainly for immigrants, okay? Now, the reds are military installations, right? We got this one. Notice down here on the outskirts of Guantanamo Bay, migrant operations. Did you know that was there? Most people don't, right? We know there's a prison at Guantanamo Bay, right? We call it Gitmo, but, we knew that's there because they detained guys from 9/11 for a long time. But these are military installations, okay? These are where we were tracking flights when the Afghan thing went down, but keep in mind they are still very active in using them quite frequently today, right? They really haven't gone away, but all of these in red are locations that are set up very quickly to handle immigrants. And I say immigrants, okay? Like I said, the last time we saw this kind of activity was back in World War II. And given the fact that we see not just this type of thing, but we see these other communities, and I have to be careful how I say this, but there are other communities that are set up for isolation purposes around the world. We've seen them in Australia. They are in China. But then you get other forced migration institutes that are being stood up. The one here, for example, at Biggs Army Airfield, down here, these house 15,000 migrants, all right? And but then you got them up here, Holloman Air Force Base. Nobody's really talking about that much, okay? All of these different areas. The blue are immigrant kids, okay? That's the system that's currently set up, all right? That's where they take them. So anyway, we get over here, look, Europe. Now, I know there's more in Europe than this, okay? And I don't have the floating accommodations listed in here either because we really don't know where they all are except for one because that's making big news in England right now, okay? So it's just a data point for you. But again, going with history, and we tend to forget our history, then we tend to repeat it. We need to all be very, very mindful as we watch these things occur because we are starting to repeat history. You can imagine if they start floating people out here in the middle of Atlantic or parking it off, the coast out here, anywhere with those floating accommodations, people go there, you'd never hear from them again. You wouldn't be able to find them. So anyway, just a data point for you, all right? But something we need to all be paying close attention to. All right, another thing we need to be watching closely is Pakistan. Their National Assembly is going to be dissolved August 9th. This is the way this works, and this is kind of crazy, but the Prime Minister will send a formal advice to the President for the dissolution of the National Assembly. Now, according to their constitutional provisions, the President must sign the advice within 48 hours to basically kick off the dissolution. Here's where it gets kind of nutty. That if for any reason he doesn't sign it, doesn't matter. It automatically dissolves. So it's one way or the other. They're basically dissolving their National Assembly. Keep in mind that Pakistan is a nuclear country, all right? And anytime you start to see a failure for governments to basically establish themselves and stand up, that's always a bad sign. Check this out. Now, I'm going to go kick in real fast. We're going to talk Great Reset for a second, and I want to show you. Look at this. This is their action plan, okay? It's a spider web chart, so to speak. But notice the thing right dead center, just in the middle over here. It says involuntary migration, global governance failure, right? Climate action failure. Now, do me a favor. Anytime you hear anybody saying the word climate, I want you to just take that word away and let's go to what it really means and just institute it as population action failure. Okay. So when they say you have climate failure, population failure, whatever it may be, right? I believe that is code word for population. So whenever you see any kind of them stating climate change, just put in population change. That is their main goal. If you go look at any of this stuff that is being pushed out there, Vision 2030, UN 2030 agenda, it's all about depopulation. All right. So just pay close attention to that stuff. It becomes very pertinent as we look at this. Notice up here too, extreme weather. These are all drivers that were put forth for the Great Reset in terms of anytime you have an instance that occurs in one of these little diamonds, that is their opportunity to basically act. Okay, that's how their plan works. So extreme weather, food crisis, there's just all kinds, infectious diseases. But yeah, notice just dead center there. Population action failure. All right, let's move on, shall we? Okay, so we talked about the Wagner thing. We talked about Ethiopia. Let's get into what's going on with respect to the military bases and the movement of goods, okay? So you'll just notice here we've got an Atlas Air coming inbound. This is Biggs Army Airfield in Texas, coming in from Frankfurt, Germany. And then we have an Eastern Airlines that looks to be departing, headed to Bangor, Maine. That Atlas Air is headed down to Houston. It's a 747. Don't know if that is rotation time for Gitmo. It may or may not be, but we'll keep a close eye on that and see. We typically don't see them when they go to Guantanamo Bay unless you catch them on the board, because the board there gets wiped very quickly, and you do not have the ability to actually go back and look at history unless you want to pay crazy premiums with FlightAware to do so. Okay. All right. And even then, it may not be there. So, okay, let's see. This is going to be over to Dover. It looks like we've got a Royal Saudi Air Force aircraft coming inbound, Airbus A330-200. And then Atlas Air 747 coming in from JFK. Those are the big ones. And it looks like this this Saudi bird is actually just going to round robin. It's coming. More than likely, they're picking up something that they have bought. It's foreign military sales. Very unlikely they're coming over here to build a relationship, because just like the Nigerians, the Saudis don't like us much either anymore. Okay. All right. Atlas Air is headed from there to Ramstein. It's the only one on the board, a little light for today in terms of heavies. Now let's get over to Ramstein and take a look at what we've got in Germany. It looks like we've got a Camber flight 777-200. That's probably troops coming in from Baltimore. And then we've got this one we just talked about from Dover. And then another one, Camber, coming in from Anchorage, Alaska. Now that's a flight right there. But that is more than likely carrying artillery rounds, because remember, we bought or borrowed. How you borrow artillery it's kind of a crazy concept, isn't it? 500,000 153 Mike artillery rounds from South Korea. All right. Okay, from here, let's see, Ramstein, we got a flight headed to Cairo down towards Egypt. We have a 777 headed to destination unknown. That one is the Czech Air Force and Western Global MD-11, and then this Kaleta Air 747, destination unknown. So we got a lot of stuff leaving. Do note too that there is a significant uptick right now with equipment going into the Middle East. All right, that seems to be another focal point. I think a lot of that is centered on two reasons. One, there's an unknown variable with Iran, right? And that is due to the prior administration before Trump got in, who basically induced that variable. Now, but the other piece is all of this unrest in Africa, okay? Remember, gold, uranium, oil. Three top-tier drivers for anybody to basically set up shop because everybody wants those things. So You've got that's happening in Africa. Then the other piece too, you get into Syria, you've got Russia, Iran, Turkey, all setting up shop in Syria. That makes the U.S. very uncomfortable. And we are standing up a lot of things in that region, like F-35s and F-22s, to try to counter some of that. But that is, in my opinion, where this whole thing is going to go hot. Ukraine, I don't think it'll go hot there unless something really big happens. I see Zelensky continuing to try to antagonize the Russians by popping stuff off in Moscow, probably making our agency very upset. And I would imagine that his shelf life is probably limited. They could very well replace him, and he will just get, disappeared. Okay. So, all right. So anyway, that's going to be Ramstein. Let's go over here to our forward operating base at RZE Poland, which is close to the border of Ukraine. And we kind of go through the board. I'm not seeing, and I got one camper coming from Anchorage, right? That's direct, straight in. Okay. That's bringing artillery. Because remember, they don't have enough stuff to fight against the Russians. They need all the stuff, all of it, including all your money. And then let's go down. You got a UPS flight coming in, 747-800 from Anchorage as well. So I guess UPS is handling hazmat equipment as well. Nothing else on that side. Let's go up and see where the departures are. We do have a Western Global MD-11 headed outbound. Don't know where it's going. Base Commander, Duke 63. I think that's from Wiesbaden. Army aircraft, little BE-20. And then that's going to be the Brits coming in. So I head down the list here, and yeah, I'm not seeing anything else. There is a National Cargo 747, destination unknown. There's that UPS headed to Louisville, so that's home base operations. Probably empty, honestly, as it goes back. Okay, camber flights. Let's get into the cambers. This is going to be Precious Cargo, U.S. Transportation Command, 777-200. Again, that's probably troops. This one coming out of Crete, probably troops. This one, I don't know. That's Anchorage, Alaska. UPS. Well, there you have it. As a camber flight. And then this one, let's see who that... I don't know who this is out of Orlando, but they own a 747, and they're headed... they originated out of Osan Air Base, okay? And then this 777 coming out of Shannon, Ireland. Again, destinations unknown. All right, Western Global. Okay, now this is how they operate. Okay, notice they come out of Europe. They fly directly across. They'll head across China, no problem, because they're not carrying anything, and China will allow them to fly in. And they'll fly down here into Japan or South Korea, and they'll load up with equipment, and then from there, just like this one, they'll bug out. They'll fly either here to Chicago, they'll go here to Anchorage, over to Europe, and they just keep going around, right? Eastbound all the way. I know that drives you flat earthers crazy. Okay, now let's see. This one is NATO. Got nothing on the board. Let's head over to this side, which is going to be Omni. All right, it looks like Omni is once again... let's see, this Guam. So in and out of Guam, that's from Anchorage to Guam. This is Hawaii to Guam. And it's the only two that I have on the board for them. And then we get over to the Brits, and they are all over the place, right? So down here, south of France, all the way back. Looks like a lot of them are heading in and out. This one's going to RZE, Poland. This one looks to be getting airborne out of Cyprus. That's a pretty big installation base for the Brits right there. But that's the Brits. And then let's talk the immigrant machine for a minute. And just notice you've got several that look to be headed interior. This is a regular flight from Ontario, California to Greensboro. Again, I think it's Amazon related. And this one looks to be headed to the holding facility here at Alexandria. Everything else is southbound. All right. Well, listen, that's going to do it for our SITREP today, folks. Again, keep that powder dry and stay frosty, because things, they are changing, and we are sitting on a global powder keg at the moment, and there is no telling when this thing's going to kick off, but I see nothing, and I mean nothing, that is de-escalating any of this. In fact, all I see are people just keep putting the chips back into the board, man. So, all right, you guys be safe out there. God bless. Monkey out. Thanks for watching, folks. Check out the latest gear and products over at monkeywerxus.com.